Hello everyone, welcome to URBONUS podcast. I'm the host Donatas URBONUS and I'm joined by Rytis Vyšniauskas, my colleague, and I'm really excited to say that we're about to start our second Q&A session.
Yes, indeed. I mean, our first Q&A session, in my eyes, was a huge success. We talked so much that we actually had to cut some of the stuff because it was too long. So this time we're gonna try to keep it short and simple, but thanks everybody for your questions. We got a lot of questions on YouTube, on Twitter, everywhere, and it's really exciting to know that you guys follow us and you want to hear our opinions on stuff.
Yeah, we had close to 50 questions through a lot of different platforms, starting with YouTube community. A lot of good questions over there, and of course on our Twitter profiles, both on Rytis, myself, and BasketNews.com profiles. Just a quick reminder that you can listen and watch our podcast on YouTube.com, on BasketNews.com channel, and of course Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, wherever you listen to your podcast, we're here. Just type URBONUS and you will find us. And yeah, let's start.
And if it's okay with you, I didn't have my morning coffee because I was in a rush. So
it's a pleasure.
I'm gonna take some sips.
Of course. You know, it's so, I feel so, you know, it's gonna be so organic podcast because we're gonna kind of communicate with our listeners, viewers, and we will answer the questions which they raise and they're interested about.
I'm one of those annoying people that cannot start their daily routine without a cup of coffee.
I'm on the same team, bro. I'm on the same team.
So I went in here and I thought, like, I need to have a coffee because the quality of our podcast depends on it. So and we can start, definitely.
Yeah, and once again, thank you all for all these questions. We selected around 20 of these questions because it doesn't mean that other questions were not great. There were some other questions which were kind of similar to what we selected, also what we probably talked before in our recent podcasts, or there were some questions which we just didn't know answers. So we didn't want to spend your time and our time on trying to analyze these questions. But I would like to start from one question which a bit surprised me. And I want to ask, what is behind this? For example, Justinas Vyšniauskas asks, how much is the fish? And the big question is it related to the famous herring tycoon video analysis that you made 7 years ago?
Oh my God.
Is it possible?
It is possible.
Because I couldn't find any other meaning of how much is the fish.
Well, the other meaning could be Scooter song. How much is the fish? Do you remember the song from the 90s?
I'm not so
Scooter,
sure. I'm not
the
so
German
sure.
band.
Yeah, I know the band.
They had a song, How Much is the Fish?
But in 90s, I don't remember any.
It's literally the title of the song.
Okay.
How much is the fish?
Okay.
It goes like that. But he's probably addressing my video from my university days.
Amazing video, really.
Yeah, 2 hours about nothing.
No, you spent only 30 minutes.
30 minutes?
Analyzing
but the production took like at least a few hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with some serious questions then. Mantautas Rimkus and a few other guys asked kind of similar question. If Russian clubs are not coming back to EuroLeague, hopefully, what teams are most likely to replace them, and which teams... another question would be, which teams would you choose to replace CSKA, Zenit, and Unix?
Well, I have two scenarios. One is the safest one, in my opinion. Simply give licenses and contracts to those big clubs like Bologna, Virtus, Partizan, Valencia, for example.
That's exactly one of the scenarios that EuroLeague has.
So this is the easiest one, in my opinion.
These three clubs are the ones who had probably the biggest budget among the Eurocup clubs. Also, they have a rich history, and they were always very, very close to be, long-term EuroLeague
and these are
organizations.
basketball cities. I mean, Bologna in Italy, we know that it's a football-driven country, but Bologna lives basketball. Valencia, people are very passionate about Valencia's basketball team, and Partizan, you don't need to introduce them. But the other possible scenario, in my opinion, would be to give those places on merit. I mean, the finalists of the Euro Cup this season, obviously, and then you need to add one more team. But you have the situation with ABA League, where, for example, Zvezda is not secured for next season's EuroLeague, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if, let's say, Partizan one way or the other gets the place, you can have both Zvezda and Partizan on board, and you would have two Serbian clubs. You would have the big Serbian derby, which I think would complement the EuroLeague nicely. And Virtus Bologna and Valencia are really safe options. But if you choose to go on merit, who knows? Maybe some underdog team will go to the Euro Cup finals, because the format is very tricky, as we talked in our previous podcast. So I don't know which scenario looks like more attractive to you.
I'm not so sure if that's the, let's say, right scenario, but as you say, easy choice of Virtus, Partizan and Valencia. I just think that they will bring most quality and best fan experience. What is interesting that there's another scenario which was kind of considered in the EuroLeague headquarters. It is to stay with 16 teams. So to keep all these 15 teams, or it depends what will happen with ABA League champions. So, for example, Zvezda might be replaced by Partizan, Budućnost, Cedevita, whatever. But anyway, keep these 15 teams and add Euro Cup finalists, because champions will get promoted. But I'm not so sure if that's a very realistic scenario, because there are two things. IMG is wants, to have as many games as possible, and it probably goes under the agreement with the EuroLeague, because there's a big difference of number of games that is played between 16 teams and 18 teams. And also some say that it would be kind of strange idea to refuse the idea of wild cards, because usually that's the way how EuroLeague gets some sponsors or just get some money for the organization. Like, what happened with Zenit, they brought Gazprom as the sponsor. It is said that Monaco, they also brought Fedcom, although they made it by themselves, of course, qualifying to the EuroLeague. But that's another thing which could help them to keep, to stay in the EuroLeague, even if they won't qualify to the playoffs.
But probably they will. Obviously, we will maybe talk about them a little bit later. But I think it makes sense, the clubs that we mentioned. And obviously with the Russian clubs, it's kind of difficult to deal with CSKA, because they are one of the shareholders, and it's easier with Zenit and Unix, especially Unix, because they are here basically for one season. If none of the bad stuff happened, if the Russian aggression on Ukraine didn't happen, and they would be playing, if Unix doesn't make the playoffs, they don't stay in the EuroLeague anyway. So it's easier to deal with these two. And with CSKA, I don't know what kind of conversations will they have. But Virtus, Valencia, Partizan, it will look really exciting.
Yeah, it sounds sexy.
I really want a second Italian team, definitely, in the league. Serbian derby would be nice, and Valencia, the Spanish league, always produces quality. They have money, continuity. And it's kind of a proven club already, because they are in and out almost every season. They're in the Euro Cup, then the next year they're in the EuroLeague, and they always have good players. When they play in the EuroLeague, they have more possibilities of signing better players. At the same time, they're the club that keeps the core players for a long time, like Dublevic, Toby, and all the other guys. So, it just would make a lot of sense. Another
good question by Mandotas Rimkus. What EuroLeague players are most likely to depart to the NBA after the season?
I'm still living with the idea of Vasa Micic actually going to the NBA. And I love watching Vasa in the EuroLeague, but if he plays his whole career in Europe and doesn't even try himself in the NBA, it would feel kind of unfair, because you would be thinking about what could have happened if he went to the NBA. Maybe he would be even greater on the NBA court. So I think Vasa Micic should get some offers in the summer, and if there's a club that can offer him all the
control keys of the team, let's say, no?
All the requirements that he has. Obviously, he wants to have a role on the team.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to be a playmaker.
He's not in a position to sign like Gabi Dek to try
just to chase
himself.
some NBA dream.
He's 28 years old. He's an accomplished basketball player, but I still expect to see him in the NBA, and I think next summer could be a possibility.
I think that Eli Okobo is another guy who might get the NBA deal, and actually that's his main goal why he went to Europe. He just wanted to get some confidence to show NBA teams that he can play. And I've actually heard that there were some NBA teams who wanted him during the season, but probably it was more about two-way contract options, and his agreement with ASVEL didn't let him go to go to the NBA. But when we talk about when it comes with Okobo, we kind of considered him as one of the top free agency targets this summer, but the thing is that he wants to go to the NBA, and even if, for example, Real didn't have the agreement with Larkin, or maybe Efes will try to find their replacements, the first priority of Okobo will be the NBA club, so he might be off of the European market. That's the same what goes with Tyler Dorsey. Actually, I've heard that Olympiacos wanted to extend the contract with him because he signed only for 1 year, and we saw what kind of impact he made on this Greek team. But the thing is that he still wants to go to the NBA, and he won't try to sign any deal until he will try himself. I don't know if it's just a free agency or summer league or NBA camp, preseason camps or whatsoever. But another name which you couldn't realize about having, let's say, real NBA dreams is what really surprised me. And from what I've heard, that was one of the reasons he changed the agency recently, is Connor Frankamp, who expects to make the NBA through two-way contract, through guaranteed deal, through summer league. I don't know, but I was honestly really surprised.
I mean, players chase their dreams. We have a lot of examples with guys having 10-day contracts. For example, I saw a guy this season in Orlando Magic, Hassani Gravet, I believe. He was the North Macedonian League's MVP, and then he was chasing these 10-day contracts instead of trying to do something with his career in Europe. So Frankham has his mindset there. Obviously, the cards are not in his favor. If you see a guy like Kevin Pangos struggling and not making it to the roster, what can Connor Frankham offer that Kevin Pangos doesn't? But in NBA, some strange things sometimes happen. Actually, there is one player that I don't think will go to the NBA. I don't think it is on his mindset, but I would like to see him in the NBA, and I think he could be a good fit on a good system. It's Sasha Vezenkov.
Okay.
I could see him being a small forward for an NBA team. He improved his spot-up shot to a very high level. Some could say he's not very athletic. He's not that good on defense, but I don't think it would be a big problem if he plays in the right system. And he has the talent. He has the skill. He's driving to the left hand strongly. And like I said, as a spot-up shooter, he could be an interesting NBA player. However, I don't think this will happen.
Yeah, for example, for some reason it reminded me the story of Pero Antic. I mean, he also didn't look like the NBA player, but he went there, he played 2 seasons in Atlanta. He actually averaged 7 points per game in season in 2013 and 14. So I don't see why Vezenkov
Vezenkov going to
chance.
the NBA would be more... would remind me more of the Nicolo Melli move. Like when Melli went from Fenerbahce and
to Pelicans,
to the New Orleans Pelicans. They're different players, but at the same time, you can see some similarities. And for Melli, it didn't work out, so he came back to Europe. And if Vezenkov tries himself in the NBA and it doesn't work out, there would be like 5 or 6 European EuroLeague clubs willing to take him, definitely, because he's like 26 and he's just reaching the peak of his career right now.
Yeah, he just signed a 3-year deal with Olympiacos recently. So it's good to have him here in Europe. Me, myself, and I asks to choose top 5 players in the EuroLeague this season.
Yeah, top 5 players.
That's kind of a regular question, but for me it was a very hard question because I have one clear player in my top 5, and it is for sure Nikola Mirotic. I mean, the way he's playing, how efficient he is. He's scoring 17 points per game and making 67% 2-pointers and 48% 3-pointers, which is incredible, knowing how often he tags the rim, how what kind of defensive attention he gets every game. And for me, he's a clear MVP candidate this year.
I mean,
but other than that, I mean,
I think two players are locks. You cannot rule out Vesely from your top 5. It doesn't matter that Efes is struggling, but he's still putting up the numbers. He is definitely one of the best players in Europe right now, and you cannot have your top 5 without Vasa.
I just had an idea of Mirotic having more complete season than Micic.
No, I mean, if it's the MVP question, then definitely Mirotic has the upper hand this year. However, last season it seemed like that also, but after the playoff series, people changed their mind and voted for Vasa.
Was really bad.
I cannot disagree about Mirotic. I mean, he's one of the smartest players. If you see his game, he doesn't have too many touches of the ball. He can put up 16 points in a quarter without even hitting the floor. I mean, with those spot-up shots, obviously his Barca system, players like Nicolaitis always finding him in the right positions. The high-low that they play with Brandon Davis, for example, and those inbound passes, he gets under the rim. So the scoring abilities of this guy are just insane.
Yeah, for example, under coach Svetoslav Pesic, he was having almost 13 field goal attempts per game. Under Šaras, in his first year in Barcelona, he was averaging 10 field goal attempts, and this year almost 9.5. Something like that, but he's
also averaging a lot of free throws because his ability to draw fouls is also incredible. He can draw fouls being off ball.
He can draw fouls if there was not even a foul.
Well,
more or less.
That's another question about the referees, how they look to these star players. But top 5
is the quality of selling the foul.
Let's just focus on top 5. We agree on Mirotic. We have to agree on Vasa.
I have Vasa in my top 5
Okay,
as well.
So then the other players, it was not so easy to choose actually. And we agreed we're choosing from the 15 teams remaining in the EuroLeague. So I take Jan Vesely in my top 5. I know that Fenerbahce this season is having a lot of problems.
Have him on my top 5 because he played less than 20 games, and with him on the court, Fenerbahce were struggling.
I mean, but I'm choosing the best 5 players right now, right? So it means these are the best players that I would trust the most to have on my team, and Jan Vesely to me is still one of the best big men in Europe. And I'm taking him. His stats are good this season, but I know that Fenerbahce is not winning. I know that Fenerbahce is not winning, and this is an argument against him. But I'm picking Jan Vesely.
I'm not thinking, let's say, about my team, how it will look on the court, but from centers, the only guy I took was Walter Tavares because of his impact on defense. I checked the defensive rating of all EuroLeague players, and with him on the court, Real allows less than 12 points per 100% possessions with Tavares on the court. And what was interesting that the biggest impact makers on the defensive end were Nikola Kalinic. With him on the court, they allow less than 16 points per 100 possession when compared to when he's on the bench. But the leader in this category is Nick Weiler-Bob, actually. 16.8. That's a huge impact on defense.
Well, he's a very good defender. On ball. His on-ball defense is amazing, really. It has to be appreciated, obviously. Again, then we might disagree on some things. Tavares is great. I think he deserves a mention. I'm just going with Jan Vesely because I trust him so much. And then the other player, like it or not, Mike James is having an amazing season. The second part of the season, you could say, right? Because at first with Zvezdan Mitrovic, maybe some things didn't work out. But in terms of skills, raw talent, ability to make plays in ISO, to score in different ways, left-handed hook shots, right-handed hook shots, sidestep three-pointers. Mike James sometimes is unplayable, and I have to pick him in my top 5 also because of the season that Monaco is having.
Yeah.
They're creating a playoff story, and if you look at their recent games at home, they just trashed Oli, they trashed Efes, they dealt with Baskonia confidently, and Mike James is their best player. He's playing like 33, 35 minutes sometimes.
Yeah, I think that he's not as good as he was before. I think that this year he was struggling with finishing, and he's not so efficient. Even his shooting he's having one of the lowest shooting percentages in his whole EuroLeague career. But anyway, as you mentioned, talent, the way he's leading this Monaco team, we didn't believe that it's a kind of, top 8 lock. But it's not just about the results they're showing. I mean, the game, the quality of the game, and not only Coach Obradovic, but of course Mike James was one of the main reasons of their, let's say, season renaissance, which they had. So he completely deserves that spot on the top 5.
And then I had a debate with myself. Who am I picking?
Me too.
I have 2 point guards, or one you could say is a combo guard. And I was thinking about Kostas Lukas. Olympiacos is having a great season. Kostas Lukas is a huge part of that. He's one of the leaders. Should I go with him? Then I thought again, should I go with Sasha Vezenkov? Because he's great this year.
Yeah,
he's proving to be an elite EuroLeague player right now. But again, then I thought I'm picking 5 best players that I think are the best in terms of skill, in terms of experience, winning experience, all that stuff. And I just could not omit Shane Larkin. I'm sorry. I know that his recent performances were not great. We heard
especially
about
last
him.
week.
Yeah, we heard about him being sick, and it affected his performances. I know that the numbers are down a little bit, but I mean, still, Shane Larkin is a guy that can win you basketball games on his own with his amazing scoring potential. And I don't think he got any worse from what he was during the 1920 season. He's still the same player. He is still like 3rd in performance index rating this year, only behind Tavares and Mirotic.
For a guard, it's a big thing.
I have to pick Shane.
Although I actually think that performance index rating is kind of overrated.
Oh, it is. Of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, you can have 2 games with like 29, and then you have 1 game with 4 where you definitely underperform, but the average from these 3 games would still look okay.
I just think that for bigs, it's way easier to get a higher PAR
not necessarily. I wouldn't agree with that.
I think that rebound is easier to get when assist, for example, for a guard.
But if you're a guard, like Vasa, Micic, or Shane Larkin, you always have the ball in your hands. You're also drawing a lot of fouls.
That's true.
Assists. I mean,
they're also drawing a lot of fouls.
We have Vasa and Larkin in the top 5, for example, both guards.
Which tells about their quality.
And Vezenkov, of course, is there, which is why I'm saying Slukas and Vezenkov, honorable mentions, but my top 5 EuroLeague players right now looks like this. Vasa Micic, Shane Larkin, Mike James, Nikola Mirotic, and Jan Vesely.
Yeah, I had the same debate about my guards. I was just choosing between Larkin and Tyler Dorsey. I just love what Dorsey added to this Olympiacos team.
But come on, is Dorsey a top 5 EuroLeague player right now?
I mean, the way he was playing, he was very, very efficient scorer, really. But the thing is, that's exactly why I didn't choose him. That's why I took Shane Larkin.
Yeah.
Because I just cannot consider him being over some of these guys.
I wasn't building a 5 with positions like. I was just choosing top 5 players. So if we talk about Olympiacos players,
I just wanted to give praise for any of Olympiacos players. That's why.
That's why I'm saying Slukas and Vezenkov, in my opinion. Dorsey is great, but I don't think he's on that level. Okay, we can move on.
Yeah, question by Matsiauskas. If Zenit is not in the league next year, what will be the situation of Xavi Pascal and Fenerbahce claims true? But the question we could also raise the team where we would like to see Xavi Pascal next.
The obvious one is Maccabi. They're craving for a good coach, a good manager, you could say, and they need to build something. And Xavi Pascual is a person that can build teams, not only coach teams but build teams. And then again, you might have Dimitris Itoudis also available. Who knows? So for Fenerbahce, I think Itoudis might be a better fit. because they already went through Željko Obradović system. Itudis is sort of Željko's man.
Oh, but you're kind of firing Djordjevic?
I'm thinking about it. I mean, the season is not great.
But you know what's so difficult about Fenerbahce? That, for example, if we included these games against Russian teams,
I know
they would be in top 8. And
I know, but the question was about Xavi Pascual and Fenerbahce, so I'm just brainstorming about Itudis as well. And if I'm choosing a coach for Fener, and I'm choosing between Xavi Pascual and Itudis, I might pick Itudis because, as I said, he's like Željko Obradovic's man, and they already had success with Željko. Xavi Pascual is one of those great European basketball masterminds. Maccabi, an American team, I would like to see that happening. I'm not sure if it's the best fit for Xavi himself, but it's a basketball
for example,
culture.
Take Zenit. They had a lot of American players, starting from Shabazz Napier, Lloyd, Poitras, Jordan Mickey.
The good thing is that he built that team.
Yeah.
I mean, he worked with the sporting director together. They built the team together. Xavi Pascual always knows what he needs in point guard position, in center position. So if Maccabi can give him the freedom to pick players and to create the system, Xavi Pascual is the man. But again, other clubs should be interested in him as well. So,
yeah, from what I heard, that Xavi has a huge offer from Zenit because they're doing all the best they can just to keep him at least until summer, to check if they will continue in the EuroLeague or not. And I'm talking about huge money, actually, just to, let's say, postpone his decision, his move, his possible contract negotiations with other clubs until, let's say, June and July, when the EuroLeague will decide what to do with these Russian clubs. That's why they're putting a lot of effort in winning the VTB league. What's funny that, for example, I don't know if you noticed, probably not, but now VTB league website is only in Russian. Before, I remember that it was you could read VTB League website in 5 different languages. Now it's only in Russian, so they're playing their own Cold War, let's say. But anyway, they're putting huge effort to win the VTB, just in case to show the EuroLeague that they deserve that place. Let's say we were the best team in Russia. We still have this program. We still have this Xavi Pascual. They have a lot of money, so there are a lot of belief that they might keep Xavi. Although these rumors about Maccabi and Fenerbahce are real, I have to admit. And with Fenerbahce, what is interesting, that at least from what I'm hearing, first thing is that we know that Sasha Djordjevic was signed for 3 years. I think that it was a deal for 3 years, but I think that it is not guaranteed, and I think that there's a plus after the first season.
Yeah.
And of course, if Fenerbahce fails to make the playoffs, no matter what are the what happened with the standings or not, they can get him out of the contract. And if there, at least there's some speculation that if they're bringing Xavi, it is possible that the sport director of Zenit, Manos Papadopoulos, will also join him, because there are rumors and possibilities that Mauricio Gardini might leave the club. So, for instance,
it would be a full rebuild.
I mean, that would be a full rebuild, but the best rebuild you can expect, because you're getting amazing GM and amazing head coach.
If you're rebuilding a basketball team in EuroLeague and you have the financial resources, Xavi Pascual is a person that can guarantee you playoffs in the very first season.
Yeah.
Again, there could be some other interesting destinations. If, let's say, for example, Virtus Bologna doesn't finish the season on a high note with the Euro Cup and the Italian League playoffs, but they get invited to the EuroLeague with a wild card or a contract or something, and the Scariolo project is not as successful, I could definitely see Xavi Pascual in Virtus. Why not? They are going for these big name coaches. Djordjevic was one before. Now Scariolo.
They have money. They have projects.
Xavi Pascual. Why not?
I mean, coaching market will be so interesting and predictable because, for example, there are already a lot of rumors that if Lasso leaves Real Madrid, it is possible that Itudis is coming. There are rumors that Yanis Varopoulos, who was actually the first option by Zalgiris, he might be waiting for Bayern situation, because for some reason, although Trinchieri has a deal with Bayern for the next year as well. There are a lot of rumors and speculations that he might leave the club, and we already saw these rumors about Maccabi before Xavi Pascal name popped out. So a lot of coaches on expiring contracts, although coaches like Messina should stay in Milan or Bartzokas in Olympiacos. But for example, Ataman, I think that he's becoming a free agent. So a lot of teams with potential coaching moves. That's going to be interesting to follow. By the way, but the place where I would actually love to see Xavi would be Panathinaikos. Because all these organizations, even Maccabi, they have money. They have financial abilities to bring big coaches, big players. And Xavi has proved as a coach who can win with low-budget team. For example, Zenit last year. Okay, it's hard to describe them as a low-budget team, but at least nobody kind of expected them to be so successful and competitive. So even with a bit lower budget, that would be a huge win for EuroLeague because you would have Panathinaikos competitive again. Because no matter who they will sign as the head coach, I mean, Panathinaikos, they will be kind of for sure out of playoff picture team. With Xavi, the conversation is different. He can build a team with less money. Dimitris Giannakopoulos is kind of off the team, and if he works with together with Diamantidis, with Albertis, it would be very, very interesting project.
But I think that still Panathinaikos needs to be in a much better position than they are right now to sign a coach like this.
Of course. I mean, they have to offer not only good money, because his market value is way more 1 million. I think that in Zenit he's getting 1.5, which for Panathinaikos is crazy money. Their total net budget is 5 million.
Then you will be paying 1.5 million for your coach and 1 million euros for Papapetru.
You can't.
What's left? It's impossible, right? So the situation in Pau needs to improve.
It's more like a dream, not a possible destination.
I get it. I mean, Xavi was a success in Pau, even though people at the time didn't see it that way. But I mean, come on, he got them home court advantage 2 years in a row. It's not his fault that they had to face Fener and Real Madrid in the playoffs, teams that eventually became champions. It just happened so that Fener was 5th, Real Madrid was 5th. I mean, Real Madrid was with Luka Doncic. Yeah. What can you do about that? But Xavi brought them to the playoffs and with the home court advantage. So I think his time in Panathinaikos actually was underappreciated.
Yeah.
So, okay, we can move on. Xavi Pascual is obviously one of the big name coaches. It will be interesting to see what happens.
How to improve Barca roster next season? Any news about Brandon Davies renewal? Kike asks. And also there's a question by Andres Schillens. He asks, with Roland Smith's contract expiring in June and with Shengelia signing, at least that's what was reported. Do you see Smith's getting a new contract in Barca, and where would you see him go?
Right.
A lot of stuff about Barca.
Okay, first of all, I will try to give my opinion about the Roland Schmidt situation. Then you can elaborate on Brandon Davis and his contract. Maybe you have some news. So in my opinion, Roland Schmidt, if everything is going the way it is, should not be on Barca next season. I mean, right now when they have problems, he's playing the 5th position and he's actually playing really well. This is a good situation for him because in the Spanish league, he's proving that he can play at the very top, Barcelona. And then I could see him definitely, for example, on Valencia roster. If Valencia is in the EuroLeague, they could offer him a solid role. And why not? I think it could be a good destination. A team like Baskonia, for example, if they're looking for a power forward, someone who can play the 4th and 5th position, although they have Costello right now, but if they would be searching the market, a player like Roland Schmitz is a no-brainer. You sign him. I mean, Baskonia has a good history with players from the Baltics. That's another argument, even though it might sound a little bit silly. I think either way, he should stay in Spain and should be playing on one of those Spanish teams.
Because he's playing as a local player.
Yeah, but Barcelona, if they actually sign Shengelia, if Mirotic is still there, to be the third option in your position, nah.
And I actually think that they really like John Brown, and we're talking about a hard-working guy who brings a lot of intensity and energy on the court. That's what Roland Schmitz was doing in Barcelona. I like him a lot as a role player because he always takes all this criticism from Šarūnas Jasikevičius, and he's okay with that. He's very simple guy who just goes to fishing every summer, and that's the best thing for Roland Schmitz. But with all these players coming, with all these potential targets, like for example, John Motley is another guy who might be heading to Barcelona the next summer. I don't see him on that team, and especially if John Brown is coming, because they kind of similar in what they bring on the court. Regarding to Brandon Davies, I love him a lot. I'd love to see him in Barcelona in the future. But the thing is that he's becoming a free agent, and I've heard that Šaras really likes him, although they always have that kind of roller coaster relationship that started in Zalgiris Kaunas. But the question is if Davies would like to continue with Barcelona. Probably a lot of depends on money other teams might offer him, and the question is in what kind of status of their relationship with Šarūnas Jasikevičius will be at the end of the season, when he will have to decide on his future. Because I can clearly see a lot of good EuroLeague teams going after Davies. For example, he would be a great fit for Efes. Exactly.
Efes needs an improvement in center position.
Milan as well. I mean, a lot of teams. I'm not even talking about Maccabi, for example, Fenerbahce. A lot of teams.
Milan, could you imagine, like, if they replace Caleb Tarchevsky with Brandon Davies? The switch all defense that Ettore Messina loves.
We have Davies and Hines in the center position.
Wow. It would be amazing. Yeah, Brandon Davies might be one of the hottest free agents, actually. And then the question was about how would you improve Barcelona? Well, actually, there's not a lot to improve.
Not a lot of room for flexibility.
Let's add Corey Higgins to the picture.
Healthy Corey Higgins.
He's injured. He's not. And we're forgetting that Corey Higgins is not. Barca's winning games. They signed Dante Exum. We're forgetting that Corey Higgins is actually probably the best shooting guard for the past 5 or 6 years in the EuroLeague. I mean, come on.
And probably second most important guy on that team after Mirotic. And
do you remember last year's Final Four? Who got them to the final? It was Corey Higgins.
He saved them.
And they're playing without Corey Higgins, and we're taking it for granted that they're winning the regular season. Wow. So to improve the roster, I don't think there's much to be done. The star players are there. If Mirotic is staying, if, let's say, if Brandon Davies is staying, you're kind of sorted. You have Nikolaidis as a floor general. You have Jokubaitis for one more year, even improved. And Laprovitola fits the system. What could they add, in my opinion, is another body at the small forward position. I don't see Nigel Hayes-Davis as a very good solution. Maybe for short term, maybe for this year. It doesn't seem to me that he's in a very good position right now, and he might consider some options in the summer. And at the same time, Barcelona could get somebody better.
And of course, we cannot forget that Alex Abrinas is coming back after the injury, and he finally had an amazing game against Fenerbahce, making all these 3-pointers.
Also an amazing game against Gran Canaria in the Spanish league, so he's getting back
there.
So, but again, you could improve in the small forward position, upgrading from Nigel Hayes-Davis to, let's say, Nikola Kalinic. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
And
over Davis, I mean, it's hard to find, let's say, a player who could be a clear improvement in, let's say, a normal situation with the money that Barcelona has. It's really tough to find.
Ideally, I think you should keep him. And like I said, there's not much to improve. They have an amazing roster. They have an amazing team, and
a lot of players on contracts. So they're okay for the upcoming summer.
Dante Exum probably doesn't stay.
Yeah,
he has his mind on the NBA. So in the summer, he will definitely look forward to getting some NBA deals. So. But for this season, Dante Exum, having him around, this is an amazing thing for Barcelona.
Dimos Kleitsiftis, for the next season, if Larkin leaves Efes, who you would take to replace him? And another question, if they leave Fener, where De Colo Vesely goes?
Right. So first of all, let's try to discuss about Efes.
And Dogush also asks how will Anadolu Efes refresh their roster next season, who will stay, who will leave. And actually, that's very different situation what we have in Barcelona. We have a lot of expiring contracts in Efes. Micic might leave for the NBA. Larkin on an expiring contract. Simon, Dunstan, Singleton, Mormon, they are on expiring contracts. So Efes might face the rebuild, actually.
They have to face it. They got old.
Yeah.
We've talked about it a lot, actually, during the season. So let's just go step by step, right? So first of all,
replacement for Larkin.
Replacement for Larkin. I have this crazy dream in my head about Ergin Ataman with Mike James.
I also try to think about this pairing. It sounds very interesting.
That would be,
I'm not so sure if it's a good fit.
But that would be endless entertainment for all of us.
Yeah. You know, Ataman going at Mike James on EuroLeague TV interviews and then Mike James on Twitter. That would be an amazing season, really.
But yeah,
but actually,
realistically, a player like Shane Larkin, is it possible to say, like, replace him with somebody?
Talent-wise, Mike James seems to be like a logical replacement.
And the only one, actually.
Yes, exactly.
Who else you can say?
You
like
can say Okobo, but he's still unproven player for that level.
Yeah.
He was not consistent in Villeurbanne this year.
I could see like replacing Vasa Micic with Lorenzo Brown. Some similarities in their game. Also a tall point guard that can control the team, and he's a very good defender as well. That would make sense.
You can try to sign Dorsey if he's coming back, but he's not on Larkin's level.
I don't know, man. Mike James in Anadolu Efes jersey under Ergin Ataman, that would be entertaining.
One last dance
that would
by
be
Mike James in the EuroLeague. I would love to see that.
That would be really entertaining. Then we can talk about their whole rebuild. After that, we can focus on De Colo and Vesely situation. So the whole rebuild, you mentioned those players that
James Anderson
have
is also
expiring
winning
contracts. So from all these players, I'm keeping Mormon. If I could extend him with like 1+1 or a 2-year deal, he still has a lot to offer, in my opinion, as a power forward. He's very solid. He's having his best season in terms of shooting. His 3-point shooting is really consistent right now. I'm keeping Mormon.
Probably I'm keeping Dunstan as a backup center if I have Brandon Davis as my main center.
Yeah, it's possible. But then Simon, Singleton, Anderson.
With all due respect to Simon, for example.
But we need to refresh the position.
The reason of his bad season is not only related to injuries, but also with the relationship, related to relationship with Ergin Ataman, probably, because, you know, he got fined because Ataman didn't let him go to a funeral. A lot of stuff was happening. So they kind of just need some refresh, let's say. But yeah, other than Mormon and then Dunstan, they need new faces.
But then a power forward is a must. I have Mormon, it's okay, but I need another one because right now, for example, the last games they played, there was no Singleton, so Mormon was covering like 34 minutes, and then they played some limited minutes with Anderson at the 4th position. It shouldn't be like that for a team like Efes. And again, I'm thinking about Matthew Costello. I've mentioned his name before as a stretch 4 who can sometimes play in the 5th position. I think it would be a nice addition to this Anadolu Efes team.
Both Costello and Mormon.
Yeah, need 2 good power forwards, and for Ataman's offensive system, they both should be able to shoot the ball. Why not? Costello is also a good rebounder. So to replace Singleton with Costello would make sense to me, and keeping Mormon again for at least one more season, I'm sorted in the power forward position.
Thinking about something more physical and maybe, let's say, more versatile that I could use as a center.
John Brown,
for example. I don't have a clear name, but let's say I want a bit different player than Mormon is.
Well, then John Brown comes to my mind. But again, you're facing a lot of competition for John Brown. If Sharas and Barca want him, you might not get him. So you need to have a backup plan. And then the small forward position, which is very important. Actually, teams facing Anadolu Efes, they always try to attack them at the 3rd position because Ataman plays with 3 guards a lot, with Micic, Boba, and Larkin on the court, or he puts Elijah Bryant as a small forward, Krunoslav Simon. These days he is getting injured, barely even playing. So, and James Anderson is also a veteran with an expiring contract. So a very important signing for the small forward position. Could you see it happening like if the sky's out of the EuroLeague, out of the picture, Will Clyburn is becoming available.
That was my first option for Efes, for
that
a small forward
that
solution.
Would be an amazing
or Mario
signing.
Hezonja, for example. Mario Hezonja, Mike James, on Ergin Atamanti.
But a small forward is a must for them.
Yeah, I agree.
And you need to replace Singleton, and you need to sign a center. Again, then Micic Larkin situation, if both of them are leaving, it's very difficult. If only one of them leaves and the other one stays, it's easier.
Although we don't see that happening. I mean, even Miško Ražnatović mentioned in my interview that there's a bigger possibility that Micic leaves Efes this year than the last summer, for example. We saw all these reports about Larkin and Real Madrid. And a lot of it depends on how much money they will have. Because from what I heard, at least one source was suggesting that Efes will have a budget decrease for the next season. So, if you go for a rebuild, the budget decrease, that's tough.
Sometimes a budget decrease is a blessing in disguise. Do you remember Olympiacos? When they had a team full of superstars with Linas Kleiza,
Josh Childress,
and then they announced that the budget is going to be lower.
And they won the EuroLeague twice in a row.
They need to build a team around one superstar player, Vasilis Panoulis, and they were the EuroLeague champions with a lower budget. Yeah. So, for example, Zenit, they entered the EuroLeague with a bigger budget, but without Xavi Pascual. Then they had a very bad first season in the EuroLeague. Then they had a lower budget with Xavi Pascual, and they built a team that made the playoffs and gave a 5-game series to Barcelona. So, the budget decrease, it depends on what level decrease we're talking about. If it's like 10% decrease, doesn't change much, in my opinion. If it's like 50%, then of course.
Yeah, and we know that Ergin Ataman is good at building rosters, so we could trust Ergin Ataman building a new interesting FS team even with less money.
Yeah, but we've talked about those names. Either way, if you're losing superstar players, you need to replace them with other superstars. That's for sure.
So De Colo and Vesely. The question was if they leave Fener, where they would go.
Well,
I can see, for example, Jan Vesely in Milan.
I can see Jan Vesely anywhere, to be honest.
That's right.
I mean, Barcelona replacing Barca and Davies with Jan Vesely.
That
why
would
not?
make sense. That would make sense.
To switch it off.
There were some rumors about him and Barca last summer, probably. There were already some rumors about Milan. It would be a nice pair with Kyle Hans.
And then De Colo, his situation is different, right? We know he's still at the very top, but he's 34, 35.
You already said the answer. I would like to see him in Real Madrid, but I have too many veterans already on that roster.
But then, if there's no Shane Larkin in Madrid, a 2-year deal with Nando De Colo, maybe, why not? Let's give it a try.
Quality-wise, that's a good solution.
Either way, we're thinking about De Colo as a free agent, and some teams would like to sign him for, let's say, a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal. If it's not Madrid, then again, I'm thinking about Virtus coming to the EuroLeague.
I'm actually thinking about Valencia coming to the EuroLeague.
And because De Colo making a comeback?
If I'm right, he's making a comeback. And if I'm correct, his wife is from Valencia. So it's kind of home for him. And for example, Valencia is giving 2 or 3-year deal for De Colo to finish his career. I think that he will love that solution.
That sounds nice.
There were some rumors about that even before his move to Fenerbahce, when Valencia was mentioned as one of the possible destinations for him. So I would love to see him back in Valencia and making Valencia also a very interesting team to watch.
I'm pretty sure Valencia fans agree with you on this one. And it actually makes sense. You could take a pay cut. I mean, you already have a lot of money. Valencia maybe will not offer you as much as Real Madrid could, or even Virtus. But
although the owner of Valencia is a very rich guy, he owns the biggest brand of supermarkets
add
in Valencia.
Something extra if it's De Colo we're talking about.
And if I remember well, they are building a new arena also. I just don't remember when. So I would see a lot of sense, giving him a long-term contract to finish his career, and then maybe he will take a pay cut.
Nice. Okay. Good.
There were some rumors about Monaco, but from what I've heard, just from taxation. It's just too difficult for Monaco to sign French player on the salary that De Colo is getting, and he was getting in Fenerbahce around 2 million euros per season. Yanis asks about Rokas Giedraitis. That was interesting question, especially for us Lithuanians, so I just thought to bring it in. Is it a good option for Olympiacos to sign Rokas Giedraitis?
Well, in my opinion, Olympiacos could use another shooter, a real pure shooter, let's say. And Rokas Giedraitis might play in that role. He's known for his off-ball movement. He doesn't need to have the ball in his hands a lot. And in a team
he's good in a fast break situations.
Yeah, in a team with Lucas, with Dorsey, with Walkup, and all these other guys, I think it could be a good signing for Olympiacos, actually.
Do you see him instead of Shaq McKissick then?
Probably, yeah. I mean, Rokas Giedraitis is not the most consistent player, but he would add something on top of what Olympiacos has already.
It would make sense, right?
A shooter,
I just think that McKissick is a better defender, and
he's more athletic. But I think Olympiacos is sorted on defense, and the only way I could improve this team right now, realistically, is another shooter. Because right now they have too many guys that you can risk on defense, and we saw that in the Monaco game, for example, when Monaco were leaving guys like McKissick, Larenzakis, and some others open, and they couldn't make shots, and Olympiacos had Slukas in the foul trouble, and you know the outcome of the game. So Rokas Giedraitis gives you 3-pointers, he gives you fast breaks, he gives you effort. Why not?
Yeah, I just see that according to Bibolytics, Olympiacos has the 4th best offensive rating, but they're 9th in 3-point shooting accuracy.
Just one thing for sure, to the Greek fans and to the one that's asking the question. If you're signing Rokas Giedraitis, you will have to accept that he's not super consistent. He will have those nights where shots are not falling and he seems like disappeared from the court. But in the long run, he's a very solid addition.
Yeah, but the problem is that he's under the contract with Baskonia for the next year. He has a player option in his contract, but if you want to get out of this deal, you have to pay a quite significant buyout. So although it's a good idea, it's not very realistic idea. Edgars Berzinch asks, any idea how Maksvytis shapes up Žalgiris roster? What do you think about Maksvytis signing in general?
I mean, if Žalgiris wants to go the Lithuanian way, Maksvytis was their main target for the last 3 years.
The first
2 years
thing is that, they like to go Lithuanian way, but their first option was Yanis Varopoulos and these coaches from the top shelves. I even heard that they kind of contacted Xavi Pascal, but probably just, to check if what seems impossible could be possible.
But 2 years ago, when they needed to replace Šaras, Maksvytis was the first option. And then they couldn't get him, like the Lithuanian national team also couldn't sign him because of his contract with Perm. And now, they're going to go with Kazis Maksvytis as the head coach. How the roster would shape up is an interesting question. I have absolutely no confidence in Kazis Maksvytis building a EuroLeague team. I'm sorry. He's known for coaching teams, not building teams and signing players. And this is the first time in his career when he will be in this position. And then the other thing is, when Žalgiris will be preparing their roster for the next season, when Žalgiris will be building a team and actually they will have their first training camps, Kazis Maksvytis will be preparing a Lithuanian national team for the Eurobasket, and he will be there in the beginning of autumn coaching the team in Germany in the Eurobasket.
Yeah, he will join the team only around September 20th, something like that. I think it's probably like 1 or 2 weeks before his rookie EuroLeague season.
Yeah. So I think if Žalgiris decided to go with Kazis Maksvytis, they need to sign a very strong sporting director and to have a very clear idea what players they need. And Kazis Maksvytis, I don't know if he can build a team. I don't know if he is scouting the EuroLeague market as well as Šaras and all the other top coaches does.
No.
He knows Lithuanians, right? So Kazis Maksvytis is probably a second chance in Žalgiris for a guy like Tomas Dimša.
Eigardas Žukauskas?
They obviously would like to re-sign Marius Grigonis if it's possible, but I don't think you can build a purely Lithuanian team and be successful in the EuroLeague. So to choose your main point guard is the biggest thing for the next season. This is the biggest thing. Žalgiris this season doesn't have a reliable point guard. So you will have to invest money into that position and to sign a real point guard that can attack the switch all defense, can play in one-on-one actions, that can create shots for himself. I don't know, it will be difficult. And with your head coach being in the Eurobasket, it doesn't help, really.
And I think that Kazis Maksvytis is the one who really deserved that chance to coach Žalgiris Kaunas. I'm not saying that he will be a very successful coach. I'm not sure about that, but from Lithuanian market, I think that he did everything what was possible in his power, at least to get this chance. But I just think that timing is wrong for this situation.
Yeah.
Just as you mentioned, Eurobasket, preparation for the Eurobasket. He doesn't have any EuroLeague experience. And the worst part is that so far I just don't see any experienced helper assist any, helping hand in building the roster. Because we have Paulius Matejūnas, who before with Šaras, he was taking more of the business side. And he was very successful with that. When he tried to make some basketball-related moves, we saw what happened. Then we have Paulius Jankūnas probably coming in sports director position. No experience, not just, searching the markets, but no experience in working in the office. I mean, that's a way more difficult thing when it looks like looking aside. And we don't really know a lot of good former basketball players who turned out to be good managers. And the next thing is that they already made a hire. They hired 25-year-old scout, Erikas Kirvelaitis, who got famous bringing ball brothers to Prienai. I have nothing against that move, but the thing is that in all this team, I see this table where 4 men are sitting here and just trying to build a roster. I just don't see any experience.
And you have the head coach on the phone.
Oh yeah, because he's with the national team. Yeah, exactly. He's here only, via Zoom conference call or something. So,
in general, I'm not a big fan of the idea that the coach can have these two jobs in the national team and the EuroLeague team. I know that Itoudis is now going to coach the Greek national team. Again, obviously,
but probably that decision was also based on what will happen with his club career.
During those windows, it's okay. The assistant coach can take care of the national team, but then you have to devote your whole summer for the national team. And it's not the best place to be where you're coaching the national team, but at the same time, you're thinking about signing players for the club. I don't know.
Which is not your comfort zone at all.
It doesn't sound right. I agree with you that Kazis Maksvytis eventually had to become Žalgiris head coach. But it's not the right timing, really.
Because, it will be a multi-year deal. And we can say that, it will be only the first year of the project. But, we have to... Probably often what happens that the way how you set the tone in your first months, in your first year, might have a lot of impact for their future. And if they will start badly, if they will look bad, if they will have to deal with the roster they have, for example, last year, it's very hard to regain the confidence of the ownership at your abilities and to regain the confidence of fans. It's not as easy as it looks like, and we can just say that theoretically that they will not like waste, but they will give up the first season for the future. But it's harder than it sounds, actually.
And I don't see the situation continuing for 3 years that he's coaching the national team and the club.
No. That's the decision which he will have to make after the Eurobasket.
You need to choose your priorities, and these days the priority usually is the club and the EuroLeague. So I want Sfairopoulos, to be honest. I want Sfairopoulos to start rebuilding the Žalgiris team, but we will see what happens. It's too early. They actually didn't even announce Maksvytis officially yet as
probably
the head coach. We know it's going to happen, but let's just wait.
Yeah, and Sfairopoulos was their first option, and from what I've heard, he was asking something around maybe more than €500,000, which is logical. I think that's a fair money to Coach Sferopoulos and his coaching staff. But the thing is that he's smart. I mean, he knows that there will be a lot of moves in the coaching market, so he might get something bigger than Žalgiris. For example, he always had, let's say, fans and CSKA front office. He will be for sure considered as one of the top choices when some team will need a new head coach. So yeah, we will see. Regarding to the roster, at least from what I hear so far, of course, another team with a lot of potential changes. It's kind of clear that players like Jankūnas is retiring, Strelnieks is kind of retiring from the EuroLeague. Ty Webster should be gone as well. Niels Giffey, although he has plus in his contract, but he even wanted to leave the team during the season, so I don't see him continuing in Kaunas. Nivo also had plus for the next year, but he changed his agency recently and he's expected to move. Kavanaugh, I think that Žalgiris would like to keep him, and I also like him as my backup option for power forward because he improved during the season. He can shoot as a stretch four, and he has that kind of Lithuanian mentality which he showed in LKL games against Rytis, for example, being very competitive and a team guy on Žalgiris. Laverne, I think that I have to be honest, I'm not the fan of Joffrey Laverne style of center in low-budget team like Žalgiris, but I think that that's the center that fits to Kazis Maksvytis, because usually he kind of reached success. He even reached this success with Simas Galdikas, so we can imagine that he will use Laverne as best as possible.
We will get back to Žalgiris in summer. Obviously, we're going to have a lot of talks about them in Lithuania and probably in our podcast as well. Right now, I'm just in a position where I don't really have the trust in Žalgiris organization to build a successful EuroLeague team, because ever since Šaras left, they had one season with like what they inherited from Šaras. The players like Volkop and all the others, Jokubaitis having his best season, breakthrough season and stuff like that. And it was like the honeymoon season for Martin Schiller, who turned out to be a random coach. No offense. And every move they're making ever since Šaras left is not good. So I don't have the trust right now in this organization, but maybe they will surprise me pleasantly.
I think that they should have brought Ginas Rutkauskas, the former vice president of Lokomotiv Krasnodar. He already worked in Žalgiris for 2 decades probably. With some short stretches in Russia and teams like Lokomotiv, Dynamo Moscow, also Bamberg as well. And he's that guy who can offer some guidance, either for rookie coach Maksvytis, either for Paulius Matiūnas, even scout Erikas Kirvelaitis. I mean, he's very experienced. He knows the market. He knows the market for, let's say, for the budget of Žalgiris. He follows a lot of basketball starting from the G League to Australia. He made some good moves in Krasnodar, and his job was not easy because in a normal situation, the sports director, the vice president of his status is building the roster, but then he had some other people also making moves, so it was not that easy. But every year you could see players like Joan Motley, Kevin Hervey coming to Lokomotiv. They made a lot of interesting moves. So with the experience he has, with Lithuanian mentality he knows everything in Kaunas, in Žalgiris, in Eurocup, a lot of connections. So in my eyes, it was easy choice for Paulius Matiūnas.
Well, let's just make it simple and wrap it up about Žalgiris. I mean, they're a low-budget team. The money they've spent, or you could say wasted, during the recent years on Garino, Mudiej, Strelnieks, and Vasturia, the money makes up a franchise player and a franchise coach like Sferopoulos. And Žalgiris cannot afford these expensive mistakes if they want to make something happen in the EuroLeague.
Yeah, and just to wrap it up, just some additional information. Žalgiris also wants to keep both Edgaras Ulanovas and Lukas Lekavičius, which is a good decision. Of course, regarding the money they will offer them. And they also expressed interest in Marius Grigonis, but knowing Žalgiris' financial abilities, it's for sure not going to be easy because it's unlikely that they can pay him as other good EuroLeague clubs. Let's go with question. Would all EuroLeague team be a competitive team in the NBA? What could be their ceiling?
I think we could build a team from best EuroLeague players that will find a way to score points in the NBA. I just don't think we can build a very good defensive team because in the NBA you need some different defensive
dynamics, athleticism,
abilities, right? And okay, so let's focus on the names. The all EuroLeague team, like the starting five.
Micic, Larkin, Clyburn, Mirotic, and Tavares, Davis. I don't know who fits NBA game better.
Probably Davis.
Yeah.
You have like Mike James from the bench.
Yeah, for example, yeah.
As a sixth man. They will score points. They will not be a great NBA team, in my eyes. I don't think they will. Because... Well, in the NBA, again, you cannot just build a team around who's the best player. Building a team for an NBA club is like an art, I would say.
Yeah, that's the same.
You have the star player, and then you need to add players that fit the idea of playing with the star or two superstars, or sometimes like you even have the big three. And on the NBA teams, you will find players that get relatively important minutes, but they wouldn't be that great in the EuroLeague. But they fit this, like Bruce Brown for the Brooklyn Nets. I don't think that Bruce Brown would be a great EuroLeague player, but for the Brooklyn Nets, he adds what they need. So building an NBA team is not as simple as signing the best players with best skills. You need to have the clear idea how these players will complement your star players, because the role players are usually the ones that win you the championship. And all EuroLeague team, they would have a lot of talent. It wouldn't win on the NBA. I don't think so.
But if on the top of that, if you add 1, 2, or 3 NBA players, and let's say solid NBA players, that's what Ergin Ataman suggested. I mean, when he mentioned before the season in an interview on the podcast that Efes with 1 or 2 NBA guys, solid guys, they would make the playoffs. What do you think about that kind of scenario? Because I think that it would be possible, and for some reason I got back to Toronto Raptors times when Mauricio Gherardini built a European NBA club. And I mean, for example, 2007-8 team which made the playoffs as the 6th seed in East. Of course, in East it's way easier when in the West, and especially in that decade. But anyway, for example, their top guys on that team were Chris Bosh, that's that solid NBA player this all-EuroLeague team would need. And then they had Anthony Parker, TJ Ford, Jose Calderon, Andrea Bargnani, Carlos Delfino, legendary Carlos Delfino, Jamario Moon, Rashon Nesterovic, and Jason Kopono. That's their core. That's incredible, right?
So the question is, do I see Vasilija Micic winning with Kevin Durant? or what's the question?
Okay, Chris Bosh was not as good as, let's say, Kevin Durant. Right. He was just, that promising coming up.
Okay, I agree. If we start adding Paul George or players like that to the all-EuroLeague team, you can have a winning team in the NBA.
Playoff contender, let's say.
For sure.
But no, if it's only EuroLeague players,
no,
it's a tough season for that team. Igor Jerkovic, EuroLeague in 2 divisions, East and West, 32 clubs. Your thoughts, and do you have some info about that?
I don't have any info, honestly, and I don't really want this model.
Indeed.
I think 16, 18 clubs, whatever, maybe even 20, but then you have to decide on how the playoffs work, because only 8 playoff spots is not enough if you have 18 or 20 clubs. It's not fair when you win more than half of your games and you don't get to the postseason. But divisions, 32 clubs, I don't think there are 32 sustainable, stable clubs in European basketball that could work in the long term. Because if you have 32 clubs. Some of them will face financial struggles. There will be a lot of up and downs. We have so many examples in the past where some clubs just all of a sudden they have money, then the money is gone, then the club's gone. Some of them go bankrupt. Some of them just go from top to bottom. No, it's too much. And divisions, why would you need that?
Even from the fan standpoints, I would love to see Barcelona, Real Madrid in Kaunas more than Unix Kazan, for example, even Zenit St. Petersburg. I mean, East doesn't sound sexy at all for a fan.
If we split the league geographically to the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, obviously the Eastern Conference is not very sexy.
Yeah.
So,
and as you mentioned, I mean, other than Partizan, Valencia, and Virtus, I don't see a lot of teams who could keep up with the EuroLeague level. And I already we already see that Zalgiris, Panathinaikos, they're way before these top teams, and it's sometimes it's really hard to keep up with these clubs. And then if you add how many 14 more teams, it's hard to keep the intensity of the tournament, and that's what it's all about. That every game matters. Every game can be unpredictable. I just don't see that happening with other who follows Virtus, Partizan, Valencia in Eurocup or Champions League. Pick and roll us. Top 5 biggest overachievers teams in EuroLeague history.
We're talking about modern EuroLeague history, right?
We're talking about modern EuroLeague history, but I still included Zalgiris. I just read Thais Edney interview and how he said that, Olympiacos, they were so confident in the semifinals on 1999. They took that game against Zalgiris as a practice for the final, but just because of that, I kind of used a cheat.
No, I didn't, but I still have Zalgiris from Sharas.
Ah, okay.
Days. They made a Final Four, then they made the top 8. They were the underdogs. I'm sticking with the modern EuroLeague, so Zalgiris is there from Sharas days.
Maccabi from 2014.
First of all, I have Partizan.
Final Four Partizan, right?
Final Four Partizan with Bo McCaleb leading the team.
Lawrence Roberts was on that team.
I think so. Alex Maric.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
Nobody expected them to be in a Final Four. They were there, and they were actually close to winning the semi-final game. So this Partizan team definitely should be included as one of the biggest underdog stories. Then I'm picking the first Olympiacos title.
Against SK, Printage's game winner.
I mean, they were not the favorites in the semifinal. They played Barca, right, in the semi, I believe.
I think so.
If I'm not mistaken. And in the final, they were down by almost like 20 points. The stage was set for CSKA to take the title, for Kirilenko to win the EuroLeague.
Were on a budget decrease. It was kind of a rebuild season. Everybody, they were thinking about long-term things.
That, and then you've mentioned Maccabi with Tyrese Rice having his MVP in the Final Four. Maccabi went to the Final Four as big underdogs. They faced CSKA in the semifinal.
Yeah.
They won during the dying seconds of the game, and then the same happened in the final against Madrid.
Then they had a hard time in top 16. Actually, they were like 2 wins away of not making the playoffs.
Do I have top 5 already? Zalgiris, Partizan, Olympiacos, Maccabi.
Probably we're missing something, but it's hard to
should have one more.
Probably Lokomotiv making the Final Four. All these players, they were great.
Loco, they had a lot of money, a lot of stars. If we're thinking about teams that made Final Four and that was really unexpected, I would go maybe with Malaga, Unicaja, when Sergio Scariolo was coaching them. They made a Final Four with Marcus Brown, supposedly their best player, being half injured all the time. So maybe that story comes to my mind.
Sarper RL. EuroLeague organization is criticized a lot for many different things. What do you think are the lowest hanging fruits, easiest wins they could go for that? You feel like, but what, don't you just fix this for once and for all?
Well, I don't know. The first thing that comes to my mind is the situation we had last season when we had these amazing playoffs in the EuroLeague. And there were those deciding game fives. We had 3 of them.
We had that's the dream of every organization, to have 3 or 4 game 5s in the playoffs.
We had Madrid against Efes. We had
Barcelona,
Zenit,
Milan,
Bayern.
Great series,
and
all of them.
If you're a EuroLeague fan, you want to see all of these games. You want to see all the action. And not only were these games clashing between themselves, also during that evening, you had the UEFA Champions League semifinal. I mean, you have to sort these things. These are the best games of your season. These are the highlights of your season.
This is the best product you can bring.
You have to do everything for people to see these games. You have to find the best solution, the best time, the best available time slots for each of those countries so that people could see them. These games were on the same night. Then what they did, they just pushed Efes Real Madrid game, I believe, for 1 hour. But then again, your whole season, you're building your calendar to avoid UEFA Champions League games. And then during the most important games, you're competing for airtime with Manchester City, Paris Saint-Germain. I mean,
and these were 3 most important games after EuroLeague semifinals and final game.
This should not happen. It was a disgrace in my opinion. So this is the first thing that comes to my mind. Then you can talk about all these little things like the TV interviews, why sometimes they are such low quality, why cannot EuroLeague put professionals in charge of this, the website launching during the season and all the bugs with it.
Regular season format is not so difficult to do. Just spread the
social media communication. This nonsense that happened last week with Monaco and Mike James preparing for a game. That's not.
I'm also missing, clear communication. For example, the Russian teams and their situation. But then, for example, regulation things when you don't know just until the end of the season, until the mid of April, if 2 teams from EuroCup will promoted EuroLeague or not. I mean, that should be clear before the first day of the season.
So these are the lowest hanging fruits, I think. Fair enough.
Yeah. Pedro asks us, hey guys, hope you're doing well. Yes, we do. My question is kind of weird, but don't you feel like we're constantly overjudging young prospects? I still remember those who were saying that Ntilikina was going to be next Jason Kidd, that Radonjic and Doncic were equal in terms of ceiling, not just their surnames. I'm sure there are journalists right now saying that, I don't know, Marek Blažević is either going to be a star or bust. Do you believe that you're also contributing to this somehow? If you do, what are your thoughts on that? And does it affect young players?
It does affect young players, obviously. It creates too much pressure for them, I believe. And I think the media should be more careful sometimes. The question makes a lot of sense, actually. Thanks for the question. I don't feel that I'm contributing to it a lot, because actually I consider myself being rather careful when talking about these young prospects, and I'm not the type of guy that hypes a player after one good performance or talks about an 18-year-old that, wow, he's the next Michael Jordan or something.
Unless it's Luka Doncic.
I mean, we saw Luka Doncic when he was 17 years old already that he's...
And it was not just potential. He was already delivering on the EuroLeague, on the highest stage.
But he's a unique player. Players like Doncic come once in a century, probably. So it is an issue. I agree with that. That in today's world, for a young player, it's not that easy to keep your head straight and keep your feet on the ground, because if you read a lot about yourself, you have a good game, then also you have a lot of scouts, agents around you, and the environment is pretty stressful, and some mental health issues might occur when you're a young player and you're not living up to your potential. You're a high draft pick, but you're not delivering. Now all of a sudden people are talking, he's a bust, his career is unsuccessful. Definitely, it is an issue, it is a problem, and I don't like when people, for example, watch FIBA Under-19 championships and they talk about some players like, this is a superstar in the making. The guy didn't even play in the men's game yet, so just be patient. Let him grow. I mean, it has to be a natural process, I would like to say. Sometimes these days, people start talking about 15-year-olds already putting labels on them.
Yeah, I also think that we should be more patient with all these players who didn't, let's say, reach their expectations that were around early, like something that, as you mentioned, that you're 20-year-old and you're not delivering as everybody expected on, you're a bust. No, we have a lot of examples where even great EuroLeague players started to deliver on a high level from 27, 28, 9 years old. For example, we had Krunoslav Simon, who started playing on good EuroLeague level only at the age of 27. For example, Arturas Milaknis, right? He was nothing until 27. Now he's one of the legendary, let's say, shooters in the whole EuroLeague history. John Brown, he just got recognized recently and he's 30 already. I mean, we should be more patient with all these players on which we put a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations.
We could take an example, Dante Exum. Right?
Yeah.
He was a lottery pick. People were talking about that this is a game changer. This is a unique point guard. He's going to change the league. He's going to be the franchise player for the Utah Jazz. Okay, it didn't work out. People in America probably still thinking that Dante Exum is a bust.
Of course.
But he has an Olympic medal. He's now playing in Barcelona. He might be a EuroLeague champion this season. Who could say that his career is not successful?
Yeah,
and there's still many years to go. There's still many years to go.
It seems he went through so much things already that he looks like a veteran, but he's not. He's still 26 and he's delivering on the EuroLeague stage.
Any player that actually wins championships in Europe, any player that wins Olympic medals or Eurobaskets or whatever, deserves a lot of respect. It doesn't matter that he lived up to the hype or not.
Mm-hmm. And actually, we have a very similar question by Victor Vic. He asks about Victor Wembanyama, who's been in Kaunas recently. Is he really worth number one pick? And is he Rudy Gobert with shooting? Were you in Kaunas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Wembanyama, right? That's an interesting case. Asvel is the best club for him to be because Asvel wants him to play a lot, wants him to grow. No one's punishing him for mistakes. No one's punishing him for some bad decisions on the court. The club's interest is that Wembanyama grows and he turns out the first draft pick in 2023. And does he deserve the first draft pick? In my eyes, well, I don't know all of these NCAA talents, but Wembanyama, player with these, I don't know, incredible physiques. Of course, he has to be the number one pick. Usually, you're drafting players for their potential ceiling, not for what they can do right here, right now. And the ceiling for Wembanyama, I don't know. The sky is the limit. Gobert with shooting, I'm not so sure. I mean, he has some small forward moves.
He's very quick
in that body. He's quick. He can drive. Facing the basket.
For example, Josh Nebo, Tyler Kavanaugh, they had problems
and
chasing him
he's
from
shooting,
the
and
perimeter.
yes, he can be the rim protector, and yes, it is different in EuroLeague when you can just stand there under the rim for 10 seconds while one of us is doing his post-up, and then you can block it. In the NBA, have the defensive 3-second rule. There are a lot of things, but the NBA teams will draft him because of his potential ceiling. And then when you have Wembanyama, you can decide what you want from him, what you expect from him. Some teams might see him as an all-around type of player, like Giannis Antetokounmpo, that is even bigger with even longer arms. Other teams, might see him as a Rudy Gobert with more offensive skills. But he's definitely the first pick. I don't see how a player like this can be overlooked. It's impossible.
Do you have any comparisons to him?
No. I don't, honestly. I mean, it's
because it's actually
ridiculous.
So hard to imagine such a successful player being 220 centimeters.
And he can still grow. He's 18 years old.
And his body is just amazing.
He looks ridiculous.
He looks like from a Space Jam, really.
In Kaunas during that game, when the starting lineups line up in the middle of the court, you have some big guys. You have like Nebo, you have Kavanaugh.
Laverne, usually they look like big guys.
Then there's this guy. a giant, and those arms.
He changed the whole understanding what is big and what is not.
No, his physical abilities are really insane, and at the same time you see the skills, and you hear him on the interviews that he's smart. He's very smart. So I'm really excited to see him in Europe. I'm excited to see him for one more year in the EuroLeague. Next year, he should be a more accomplished player, I would say, on the court, because this year he's getting minutes in advance.
Yeah.
You see sometimes, this game in Kaunas was his best so far. And next season, I expect a lot more performances like this.
Yeah, I was actually surprised the way he impacted the game. How he was creating a lot of problems and switching defense. Giannis Sterling, he didn't have a chance to pass the ball inside. Olanovas, he got blocked with that step back three-pointer.
I think there were 5 blocks.
Yeah, he had 5 blocks for 18-year-old kid. It's just amazing.
The ceiling for him is very high, literally.
Yeah.
Because where is the ceiling?
But we were just joking with my colleague that he should live in a house, how we call it, all these houses with high ceilings.
A castle?
Something like a tower, probably.
But the ceiling...
Lofts. Yeah, lofts, exactly.
The ceiling in basketball terms is also very high. And when you want to compare him to someone, I don't have any... It's something between Rudy Gobert and Giannis Antetokounmpo, and with potentially even better shooting.
And better defense.
Wow.
Yeah, because... Yeah, okay. Wow. John Hulk, who was the first player that made you fall in love with basketball? He once European player,
European player.
For him, it was Arvydas Macijauskas.
Nice.
For me, I have to be honest, it was not European player, but he was playing in Europe, and it was Ty Sedney, because I just started watching basketball at the age of 7, and he was dominating in the EuroLeague, being 1.78 meters, I think. Probably even smaller.
I started earlier, of course, with my father watching Lithuanian national team and Zalgiris, and the first players that I started admiring were obviously Sabonis and Marčiulionis. But then if I have to choose one player that actually helped me realize how much I love basketball, it is not a European player. Technically...
Manu Ginobili?
Yeah, of course. His days in Virtus Bologna... I was watching him and admiring him so much, and I just wanted to pick up the ball and try to do some stuff, which I couldn't, obviously. I'm not even left-handed, but Manu Ginobili, he would be the guy.
Giandamiano Bovi, he actually asked us a lot of good questions. We took this one. First of all, thank you so much. I haven't missed an episode since the release of the podcast. Shout out to you, Giandamiano. Thanks for watching. And could you talk a bit about yourselves, how you became basketball journalist?
Yeah, that's a nice one. Well, first of all, I don't consider myself a basketball journalist, to be honest. I'm not a journalist. I think being a sports commentator and a journalist, these are two different things. Even being a podcaster is not...
Yeah.
Podcasting is not journalism, basically. You're a journalist. You work...
But still, I'm doing not a journalist role in this podcast, let's say. We're just talking about basketball from a fan standpoint, with some information and with some knowledge.
Let's say we're talking about our day jobs, even though they're not 9-to-5 day jobs. I'm a sports commentator. You're a basketball journalist. These are different things. I tried journalism a little bit. I didn't really like writing that much. But talking about how I got myself here, it's a rather funny story, I would say. As you can hear, I was obsessed with basketball from the early days. The 90s, this was the time when we all saw the NBA for the very first time. And Michael Jordan was the figure for all of us, probably. I remember my father waking us up, me and my brother, who is 3 years older than me, early in the morning to watch the fourth quarter of the Utah Jazz.
He was waking you up, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What were you thinking about that? Or you kind of, asked
your
dad to wake you up?
It was a huge thing to see the NBA, Michael Jordan against the Utah Jazz before even against the Sonics. So we had to see it. And then during my childhood, I was either playing with a ball or I was watching some other people playing. not only basketball, football, of course, also, but let's focus on basketball. And then in my teenage years, I think, somewhere around 15, 16, my mother was the one that pushed me and told me that I think you could be a good sports commentator because you're very talkative, you love to talk, you love to spread your opinion about everything, and you watch so many games, you know all these players, know everything about them. And
let me interrupt you. When you were playing NBA Live, were you commentating your own games?
All the time.
Amazing, yeah.
All the time. Not only NBA Live, all the other sports.
Just playing with yourself.
All the other sports simulators.
Outside, yeah.
All the time, man. And at that time, I wasn't really sure. Yeah, sports commentating sounds nice. I don't know how to achieve it. In Lithuania, there were like 3 or 4 sports commentators covering all the needs. But then, I went to the university. I actually have a bachelor's degree in English philology. I got a job at a call center. I had no idea what I'm doing with my life and how can I be in basketball. But one day I realized that I have to do something in my life with basketball because during the graduating exam sessions in high school, before the most important exam, the Lithuanian language national exam, it was the NBA final series, Celtics-Lakers.
Okay.
I don't remember whether it was game 5 or game 6. So I had the exam at 9 a.m. I watched the game live. It finished at 7 a.m. or something like that. Then I played a game of 2K on my laptop. Then I went to the exam. And at that time, I realized that, basketball was more important to me than some exams. And
so what kind of results did you receive from that exam?
Pretty good, 67% out of 100. So it's not that bad. But then to finish, how I got here, like I said, I was working a day job in a call center, and that's it. And then my cousin one time texted me, look, I found on Facebook a commentators contest. People in Lithuania are looking for a commentator to cover NKL games. That's the second division in Lithuania. So I was still living with my parents. I went to my parents' toilet and with the laptop.
Okay.
And I recorded myself for 2 minutes doing the play-by-play for Zalgiris Prienai game. And I've sent the footage to the people that were organizing this whole thing. They liked my footage and they invited me for a tryout, let's say, in Shake, a random game. I prepared like for 2 days everything I could about this game and all the players. I went there 4 hours before the tip-off. I caught the coaches of both teams and talked with them like for half an hour about every single player.
How did they react? That's not a typical pre-game situation.
They just looked at me like at a crazy person. I was asking about every single player, who's left-handed, who's right-handed, and stuff like that. But this was the first step, and after that, everything sort of started happening so fast that I, in 2 years' time, ended up in a Eurobasket in Riga. Then I started working with the Olympics. Then I was hired by the biggest sports media channel in Lithuania, TV3, to do the EuroLeague, the Premier League, Champions League, the NBA, and now I'm here also with you. So this is my story. I tried to be short, but it's not that short.
But that's a great example, how you should do something about your life if you really like something and you feel that you're not doing what you should do and what not makes you, your life and your days as joyful as it should be.
And how did you end up? You were working for basketball websites like from
earlier days, something
right?
like that.
Yeah.
And it all started from the obsession for the game of basketball. And I can remember that I was obsessed about basketball since the days I can remember, literally. But what kind of, changed my life a little bit, why I didn't end up, for example, playing basketball, not professionally, but at least going to basketball school or something. The thing is that I was... my grandfather was playing chess, and when I was 5 years old, he introduced me to chess, and he offered my parents to send me to chess school in Panevėžys, in my hometown. And I was so good, actually, that in Lithuanian U7 championship, I won silver. And I was successful, and they thought that I just should continue that. But the thing is, and I was okay. I mean, I went to European Championship under 10, and I had nice ELO ranking. I was, let's say, on that better shelf of chess players at my age. But what was interesting, where is basketball in all this story, is that, for example, we had some great tournaments in cities like Palanga, Druskininkai, and these big tournaments, like Lithuanian championships, they took for a week. And you had like 1 game or 2 games per day maximum in Lithuanian championship. But what I remember the most, what we were doing outside games. And every time, every situation where we found any time, we were playing basketball, especially during the lunch break or after the second game, which means for the evening. Instead of preparing for the following day's chess games, we were playing basketball. And what was funny, that I remember a lot of good players actually who played chess, but who also played basketball. And for example, one of them, one very, very high-ranked chess player, Mantas Kazonas, I don't know if you remember him, he played for Lietkabelis.
Yeah.
He was a great chess player, actually.
I remember him, yeah.
Yeah, there were some other guys. I remember very well Justas Tilvikas. He never played for the pro level, but he was such a short guy, and I just remember him making trees. And I remember when I left chess at the age of 13 or 14, and I'm like 19 studying in Vilnius, and I saw that guy on the street. He was taller than me, and I saw that he was playing at some amateur level pretty successfully. Yeah. So I just remembered all these games, all these gyms, all these bad gyms where we played basketball, but it was the best thing of our chess tournaments. So yeah, I just offered myself as a volunteer for Eurobasket LT website when I was like in 10th grade or something. I worked as a volunteer at the beginning, and then I started earning like 30 euros per month, something like that. And it just, happened. Krepšinis.net, Rytis LT, our big websites, and it just went on a fast track since then.
Probably passion was the driving force for both of us, passion for the game. I could say obsession also, because, one thing is to watch EuroLeague every time it's on television, or wake up during the night to watch the NBA games, which I was doing for my whole life, actually. The other thing is not knowing limitations of your body. Me being very short and weak, actually, it was not the best decision to play every single day basketball, football, every single day. And then I ended up tearing my ACL 3 times because the doctor said that, dude, your whole structure is not fit to actually play contact sport. But I just wanted to play all the time. When I was a kid, I wake up early in the morning, I rush outside, I start playing. I look for random courts where people are playing, who can include me to their games.
The best moment was when you were watching NBA finals and it ends like at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. The first thing you go outside to play.
Of course.
And I remember my neighbors really hated me because they're hearing bouncing all the time. And you kind of put yourself in these situations. You're commentating. I mean, you're just shooting the basketball or just imitating some plays.
Yes.
You pretend that you're kind of NBA player and you want to make a game winner. You're making the game winner from the 5th attempt, let's say, but still, you counted.
Best.
These were crazy days.
Oh, yeah.
And we have actually a great question by Kajus Žedelis for the ending. It's a kind of complex question. Rytis and Donatas, beer or wine? And yours number 1 player now, and if you had the chance, what question would you ask? For example, I don't know if it's connected, but I can imagine that having beer and wine and, having that player at dinner, for example, that would be an amazing situation.
I'm a beer guy. For sure, I'm picking beer. I don't get wine, honestly.
I like wine, but for me it depends. If I'm in a pub or with a group of guys together, of course beer. But if I'm enjoying my time with my wife or a small company, I like wine.
Wine is something you need to understand.
Not really.
Choose,
there are great apps right now. Right. They rank wines, so it's easier to choose.
I don't have anything in the middle. I'm either drinking beer or I'm going for tequila shots. Those middle drinks like wine, they're not for me. So I'm going to go with beer. And the player, wow, right now, number one right now, I think during the last few years, I just realized how much I admire Kevin Durant.
Have the same player.
Actually,
and not just because of talent he has, but what he could bring on the table for a good conversation.
His personality is sort of misunderstood. Interesting. There are some myths and legends about him as well. But I was not like a huge fan of Kevin Durant when he was playing for Oklahoma, for example, because at that time I was cheering for the Spurs, for Parker, Ginobili, and Duncan, and Coach Popovich, and Patty Mills, and all the other guys. And when he moved to Golden State Warriors, I was one of those people that were kind of disappointed because it makes the league boring, because the Warriors are going to win now easily with all this talent. But then basically after his Achilles injury, I started realizing how much I appreciate Kevin Durant. Then what he did for the USA team in the Olympics, how he carried the Brooklyn Nets and was this close to beating the Milwaukee Bucks last season, and the way he's playing, the way he wants to play like 48 minutes on the court. He gets asked all these questions. Is it not too much for you, for your body? He says, just let me die out there. I want to play. I have so much admiration for Kevin Durant. And
what was your question?
My one question to him: do you really have all these burner accounts?
That's kind of the very similar what I would be asking him, because I also had Kevin because of his talent and because of his personality, because of his journey. And that's the thing. I mean, that's the main topic which I would ask about. I mean, why he's just not turning this outside noise, you know, how he's dealing with it, all these burner accounts and everything, what happens around him. Because, I mean, if I was a player, I would really try to do everything to just mute everything what happens around me and just focus on basketball. But it seems like that he likes to get involved in some crazy situations. Not as Draymond Green, who called out all these journalists after the Olympic gold. But I mean, he's very weird. He has very weird approach on this, and he speaks about it often. He always tweets about some takes that some journalists made. So
he gets into beefs, a lot of beefs. Yeah. But I mean, on social media, but actually he's a very private guy. You don't know much about his private life other than how much he loves his mom.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about his girlfriends or anything?
Nothing.
No, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Zero.
That's what I really admire. But I mean, all these basketball topics, they are so interesting. And I believe that from this single question, a lot of different things would be questioned, and a lot of good topics would be brought in the conversation.
But you're gonna drink wine.
Yeah, I'm drinking wine. I believe Kev is also
red wine.
Red wine.
Red wine.
You know, when my wine obsession started with, I don't remember who brought me this idea, but they said, "Hey, look, LeBron James is drinking wine all the time, and look at him, how good he looks, how long he plays in the NBA on the highest level. It has to be something with wine not, let's say, damaging him." I was like, okay, that's a great idea.
I just saw Nikola Jokic with all these cans of Yale, and so I'm drinking beer. Luka Doncic is probably also a beer guy.
I'm a hookah guy, so yeah. Okay, folks. That was a pleasure. Really,
It was
pleasure.
really nice to answer all of your questions. Maybe in some of them we were kind of boring. I don't know, but hopefully it was a good episode.
Rytis Vyšniauskas, Donatas URBONUS. Thank you all for listening, watching us, and being with us and making all these questions. See you next time. Really, really soon.